Meeting will come to order. First item is public comment, items not on the agenda. Yes, please.
I spent most of the day yesterday calling up people around town, whose number I could get and whatnot, how they felt about taxes and everything else. I got 7 things here that people brought to my attention that they were a couple of them of mine. But these are the concerns about the tax rates being so high and some of the things cut. Roll back the police budget to $22,000. We don't need that ridiculous budget. Cut the Saturday morning hours on the library. Why not have it over here after the dump where you got a kitchen? They only just go there and have coffee for an hour and a half.
Right.
In the library. They're open in the morning from 10 to 12.
Yeah, but you can't get books over here.
I understand that, but they're not there to get books. They're
Yes,
there
they
to
are.
just have coffee and whatnot.
No, I go there to get books also.
Primary.
All right.
Primary. Anyway, review the library salary. You know, it's only 16 hours a week, and it's $19,000. These are, these aren't mine, these have come up from people I spoke to, but I'm in agreement. Have the highway department do the mowing and maintenance instead of hiring someone else to do it. Cut the celebration budget.
Instead of having who do
You pay $1,500 to have things mowed. Why can't the highway department do it? That's part of their,
it, because they don't have a mower.
well, wouldn't it be nice to buy a mower for them and save us $1,500 every year? Most towns, that's what they do. Someone brought up, cut the celebration budget by $3,000, you don't need it. And the part-time coordinator is an $18,000 salary. You don't need this huge salary for this town.
We have a part-time coordinator.
While his salary for part-time is an awful lot.
Well, he
they just
does an awful lot.
Oh, that's on his own. We don't have to, all he does is not necessarily part of the coordinator's job.
That's all.
Yeah.
You sure as that as you were about the, about taxes and broadband?
Am I sure? I know his job is supposed to be the select board's coordinator between different departments and problems that come up to make them aware of it, and on the other end, to take what they have decided and see that it's transposed and done, whatever. I don't find that so complicated. Other towns do the same thing, it's just part-time. Some of them, the select board just has the chair of the select board and also the town secretary coordinator.
I would like you to spend one day and see what goes on, how easy it is.
He may do a lot of work. I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just saying the work that has to be done should be enough for a part-time coordinator for a town with 700 people.
Oh, why don't we just send the town off to the state, say to hell with everything?
Sounds like a good idea to me at this point, because you're just wasting all the
We
money. You're
try to
driving
keep up the
everybody.
quality of life such as it is for a small town like this.
All right.
We're doing our best, and if you would really look at things, the thing that put the taxes up was the school budget.
It wasn't just the school
Yes,
budget.
it was. That was the main
to ask these
factor.
people around here that came to this meeting. I won't talk no
Have they
more.
worked on the budget?
You know, they're the ones that are paying it.
Well,
Madam Chair,
yes.
I'd like to make a comment. I understand that there's some real financial issues, and it's difficult to strike a balance. I wish it were an issue where we could have more money from somewhere rather than cutting. One of the things that came to my attention was today there was somebody was injured in town. 2 police officers were on scene. I believe that person needed to be life flighted. I didn't make it to that scene as quickly as I otherwise might have made it. There was 1 firefighter. So now you've got 3 responders from town that actually did make it to help this person. And it just seems to me a very scary situation if we've got to say, you know, it's money out of our pockets so that we're not going to get the services in a timely fashion that we may need. And I can't say what the right answers are, because I understand there are a lot of people that can't handle the financial strain of what's going on. But I think if you don't have certain services in this town, it's a risky proposition.
I would rather see the services go to your department than to the police department. Because you guys are the ones that do most of the work.
My department was as staffed as it could be today, and I was 10 minutes behind the other first responder, and there was only one other than me. If the police budget was cut, or something, I don't know what the answer to that would have been. We did have mutual aid response from Orange, but I wish there was like a GoFundMe site so that we could get through this rough spot or something without cutting services back to the minimum where they may cause a big problem.
Well, I'll get some of those.
But that's my own personal.
Yes, Nick, thank you.
If you want to do something about taxes, you leave David's job alone.
Why is that?
Because, and I'm saying this as a person, everybody knows I fought with David down to the wall, and I'll fight with David again, because he'll mess up sometime. We all mess up. That's why we have a select board rather than just a town manager. And nonetheless, he keeps his eye on the ball of what the costs are on things. He brings down the budgets on projects left and right. We need him there to keep the taxes down.
How come we're 22nd in the state in taxes?
Yeah, how do we get
Out
the
of
taxes down?
350, 335, and we're 22nd. That doesn't sound like a good job keeping the taxes down. We're second out of the 1,000 people, populations of 1,000 or less.
Tax rates don't mean anything.
Oh, you're not paying it apparently then.
I'm a resident too.
Yeah, well, maybe you're in better shape than some of us.
Just flat out looking at tax rates, all it really says to me is we lack an industrial and commercial tax base. And we are relatively, we're a $3 million more valuable town than we think we are, according to the state's most recent study of equalized valuations. But we don't have any industry, and 97% of our tax burden falls on the residences. But the tax, so that the assessed values in the town become the basis on which the tax burden, the levy, is allocated to various taxpayers. And it's actually possible to have, twice the spending per capita on anything you choose and have a lower tax rate. That's what I mean by tax rates don't mean anything. What matters is the tax levy. And the town's tax levy is limited by Proposition 2.5 to go up by no more than 2.5%. Unfortunately, some budgets have gone up considerably more than that.
Let me just...
But just looking at the tax rate, I got little respect for
In
that.
one of your statements, when you were talking about taxes last year, right, and going through them, you said, we've done this and this and this, and this is where the tax rate's gonna be, and we've left this much money on the board. You're not leaving anything on the board, you're starting with, in your assumption, you're saying the state will allow us to do this. Let's do as much as we can.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the town
That's
meeting
our money, it's
could
like
have
using it for a
put,
piggy bank.
town meeting without an override could have voted even more money than they in fact voted against the recommendation of the Finance Committee and the Selectmen for the schools. It's called excess capacity. It's a widely accepted and fairly widely understood term. It's that amount of levy that the town meeting could vote and doesn't.
I understand that, and that's why
So we left it on the table.
this information has to get out to people, and that goes back to what I spoke before. But before the annual town meeting, all of this information has to be in the people's hands, and then instead of just having 80 or 100 people vote for what the whole town is going to do, we'll have a proper.
We have agreed to do that, I believe, haven't we? Anyone else? Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. Motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chapter 268, section 20, the exemptions, do we have any?
I've got none this week.
Broadband and fiber to the home. Project update?
That would be Tom Wyatt.
Yes, broadband committee has been meeting. We have reviewed maps that have come from the state, from Wired West, as to the counts of houses that in town, which the counts were actually quite high, but we've gone through and been able to correct those. We have talked with Wired West and FERCog and set up a meeting, which will happen next Tuesday, March 10th, here at the Town Hall at 6 p.m. And Jim Draw, who is the financial person from Wired West and has worked on the model for it, will be here to, and Joe Markarian from FERCog, to go over the finances specifically in terms of Warwick and our situation, our population, and the potential tax effect. And look at the whole issue of paying back the debt and specifically in terms of Warwick. This has been set up as a joint meeting of the Selectboard and the Finance Committee, but all residents from town are welcome, and I'll send out an announcement to the Warwick listserv. What else am I missing, David?
The day and time?
Tuesday, March 10th,
10th.
6 p.m. here.
Will they have some figures at that meeting finally on what it's actually going to cost people? Projected at least.
They will have some figures. They are not final figures because it really depends on how many towns get involved. 32 towns passed the resolution in the fall to continue participating, but it's going to go in front of all these town meeting warrants, and it's likely that not all 32 are going ahead.
Yeah, because Leverett, they have theirs basically set up with Crocker now, and it's $40 for their internet, which is the minimum that they'll service, they'll get the amount of data. And they also pay another $40 to the town.
Well,
So
Leverett,
that's $85.
Leverett split off of Wired West to do their own thing, and they raised the taxes right away to pay for it.
What I'm saying,
Leverett is a very
basis of
wealthy
what the
town.
cost
It is a bedroom community for Amherst.
What I'm saying,
So
the-
it's,
the cost would be about the same as what I'm saying. I
we're
understand that they
talking
went
about
ahead and did
a
it,
$50 cost for 25 megabytes.
plus your tax increase here.
We're not modeling for a tax increase. We're like the town is being like the SBA guaranteeing a business loan. If the business pays off the loan, then the SBA doesn't have to step up and make good to the bank that made So the Leverett model, they actually went to the, it's on the tax rate. It was planned for, it was voted for, it's on the tax rate, and the customer charge is to operate the network, is not to amortize the cost of the build of the network.
But if we borrow the money to do this, it'll be on the tax rate, right?
If the business model proves to be false and either it doesn't achieve the break-even point by not having enough customers or being costed wrong, there's definitely much risk to the taxpayer, but the design is like Warwick Broadband, which never has cost the taxpayer anything. And the design of this Wired West project is the same. It is the business model is supposed to resolve the capital cost. However, if you recall my analogy from 2 weeks ago, where I was 15 years old and got a bank loan, if my dad hadn't co-signed that bank loan, I wasn't getting the bank loan. And if I didn't pay, Dad was going to have to make good. Well, the town's being Dad in this case. But it is a fundamentally different model. The Leverett model, from the get-go, was having the cost of the network bill, the stringing the fiber along the street and making connections to the residents and connecting that network to the internet. All that was planned to be a tax expenditure. So there is a fundamental difference.
A key part of the model is that while the network is being built, in the first, 2 to 4 years, they will have low interest rate construction loans to make it happen. You're talking about 0.5%. So there's not likely to be any impact.
But if you don't get enough subscribers, you're still stuck with the loan.
Yes.
On our tax rate.
And if the model stinks, if it turns out that somebody's built a business plan and it just was plain wrong because there was a faulty financial argument or it was an unanticipated expenditure, yes, it is.
But I really encourage you to come to this meeting because they know the situation a lot better and the modeling a lot better than I do or David does. And can explain. And they're going to look at also the worst case, and the best case, so people can make an informed decision.
To answer Steve's question, in my opinion, will they have solid numbers? I can't see how, because I haven't returned the maps and the data set to MBI and Wired West, where they said we had 437 potential connections in town. And so far, I've eliminated 105 as being, this is not a house, this is an outhouse, this is a barn. This place may have 2 last names associated with it, but it's not a multifamily, neither is this, neither is this, neither is this. So changing the number of connections in Warwick fundamentally changes the model. Where we were earlier told that we needed a 40% take rate, it seems to me if we wipe out 25% of the potential locations for service, that's also going to affect the bottom line calculation as to what percentage of, it doesn't seem to me that 40% of a number that is 100 or more lower in its original set of something over 400, it doesn't seem to me that the whole model's going to follow suit and flow the way it was modeled. So no, I think we're going to get some particulars, but I still think we're far away from.
That's what I'm concerned about is that this town is so small. We got it in the center of town here. If it was a viable project and money was to be made on it, then Verizon or one of these cable companies would say, hey, it's in town. Let me start spreading it. Why not make money? I
Madam
haven't seen
Chair,
anyone come forward for
could
that.
you please instruct Steve that he's not to speak until recognized by the chair?
So, done. Yes, Dave,
Could I respond to that?
yes.
Well, I understand that argument, but the argument that Warwick Broadband Committee and the town accepted. And the argument that Wired West is making is that we need this kind of intervention because simple market economics will not support this happening in this town. On the one hand, you could say, well, if it doesn't work from simple market economics, and we can't get a company to do it, then we will have to do without. I'm leaning more toward those who say a little self-help here, maybe a nonprofit model instead of a for-profit model. Let's see where it goes. I'm not sold. Hasn't got my vote yet, but it hasn't got my no vote either. I'm keeping my eyes open.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Not to believe, but I do. If it works out to be it's the same model as the broadband, that's fine. Only the people that have it pay for it and take care of it, it's not costing the town anything. I don't have a problem with that. That's why, just like I have my choice. You can have your choice. You can get satellite, you can get the broadband, you know, or you can get dial-up. And at none of the taxpayers' expenses, and everyone has that choice. That's why it's so important to be on the annual warrant there, so, and get everybody out to vote on it, and then you'll know exactly how many people actually would use it. Because they're not gonna vote on it if they're not, to have it if they're not gonna use it.
You won't get any argument from me on that. Yes?
The utilities like Verizon, the broadband providers, have consistently not been interested in wiring towns with as much mileage as we have. What we have the opportunity here with Wired West is to access money that's come from the state that makes it possible to do this. And I don't think you're going to see any way that these private utilities are going to do it. And because by getting in on the ground floor with the towns that are doing this, we're sharing the costs and we're making it much less.
Can I ask you a question about getting wired? It seems to me, and it's just a hunch, and I'm not a techie, it seems to me that within 10 years or so, nobody will want wires as the solution to the internet. It'll all be done in the air. And we will be paying on a bond for 20 years when what we're paying for has gone belly up 10 years before the 20 is over. The people in the high-tech industry generally want to pay back in 3 years. And a payback in 5 years is too much time. They don't want to do things that have a payback that takes 5 years. So 20, they know things change. They know that in 20 years we're not going to be using this. So who's going to be paying on the bonds?
Well, I don't know how you make the assumption that everything is going to go to a wireless. The broadband, the fiber cables are able to supply an incredible amount of data and information that, is for the foreseeable future going to meet our needs. Some of the equipment that is at the ends, yes, that will be replaced and upgraded over time as technology develops. But the wire itself is a conduit. It's huge for passing data through. No, we can't predict what's going to happen in terms of technology for 20 years, but it really seems like this is what we need.
Well, we don't need it available to increase by a factor of 1,000, which is what you've got to plan on being able to do if you're going to take a 20-year payback. You can't do that, say that we need it now, because we don't.
Well,
And therefore you take technology a step at a time and you ask for your payback in 3 years or 5. So it seems to me it behooves them to tell us if we're gonna put up 2 million or whatever, that it will be paid back in 3 years or 5, because beyond that, there's no assurance anybody will be doing anything with fiber.
yeah, well, I think this is a good question to bring up next week. And, you know, you'll have people that are more knowledgeable that can,
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. Anything else on broadband? Okay, we need to approve the broadband draft budget.
That was distributed last week, it looks like. Got it. What's that? Yeah.
Do we have a motion?
I have a question for the public. Does anybody, this is the first is a motion to approve a broadband enterprise fund budget in the amount of $98,000 for the next year. Does anybody other than Steve, who's spoken enough, I think, have something they would like to specifically address that on? Because we've got a lot of members of the public, you might as well participate, you know?
I think it's too much.
Yes,
I personally think it's just too much money.
it's too
Do
much.
we really need it? We're a little country town. Do we really need it? Think about it.
Well, we should. Is there anybody else?
Well, we do need to be wirely connected, that's for sure. We can't be out in this little town and not have any internet connection.
May I ask how many of you have internet?
Are we talking broadband or internet? Any kind of
Either.
internet.
How many have Warwick broadband?
It's only because my wife, she's going to college. But if she wasn't that, she wouldn't be fine.
Do we have a motion?
And, I'm sorry?
Do we have a motion?
I guess. For discussion, moved that the select board pursuant to chapter 44, section 53, we recommend
53
the
and a half.
draft broadband enterprise fund budget in the amount of $98,000. And so on.
Which includes,
You should read the whole
read
thing.
the rest.
I'm sorry?
Please read the
You
rest.
should read the whole thing out loud so everybody hears it.
Oh, okay, that's true. That the select board pursuant to chapter 44, section 53,
And a
And a
half.
half.
and a half recommends the draft fiscal year 16 broadband enterprise fund budget in the amount of $98,000, which includes estimated revenue and proposed expense budget and place it on the annual town meeting warrant for action by the town meeting.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
could I just explain to folks that we operate both the transfer station, where you pay for bags and throw your trash into the compactor, and we recycle at no fee, but still have to operate the site. Both of those are run as enterprise funds, which means that, well, according to this law, before town meeting gets the stuff, the select board needs to review the budgets and then put them on the town meeting. It's the town meeting's action that actually approves the budget. This is recommending the budget. It happens that in both cases, they're revenue neutral to the town's tax levy. When we, about 5 years ago, changed the operation of what we mostly refer to as the dump, but as a transfer station, we were cautioned by people who knew the solid waste business that it was highly, highly unlikely that we would be able to run the transfer station in a revenue neutral fashion. And when somebody, throws mattresses off the side of the road and we as a town have to go pick them up, there's still a bill to be paid. We have over time accomplished that goal of running it revenue neutral. But there's nothing in natural law or that says that that's always obtainable. I'm proud that we have gotten it over time to that point. Both enterprise funds that are deficient in revenue will cost taxpayers. It's not firewalled. Ultimately, the tax rate is at risk, and I've managed both of these funds so that they have not been in deficit, because you should know that when the town meeting appropriates, doesn't raise and appropriate, but appropriates to one of these enterprise funds, that's necessary for us to do business. But it's also created a condition where, with lack of management, you could go in the red and it could end up on next year's tax rate. So, as long as I'm steering the ship, we're not spending money we don't have. We're not spending money we aren't taking in on the revenue side for broadband. It in fact has some tens of thousands of dollars of surplus generated over its 5+ years of operation. And we're really close to the wire on the transfer station. When I came to work here 7+ years ago, that budget was between $45,000 and $48,000. I don't exactly remember. It's down to the mid-low 30s, and that's the situation. But like the Wired West project, all these things have the town's good faith and credit behind them, and if we don't manage well, it can come back to bite us.
Okay, we need to appoint David as our procurement officer.
Actually, I'm already procurement officer. What came across my desk a couple days ago was the fuel bids for, and the town traditionally contracts for fuel oil and diesel through a bidding process through the Franklin Council of Governments. Because of the volatility of energy markets, when they open those bids, we need to be, for oil, because the prices, I need you to give me the ability to say yes or no quickly to the offer.
So moved.
We have to read it.
I'm sorry?
You have to
We got an audience here, let them know what's going on.
I should read it, yeah. Move that the town coordinator in his capacity as procurement officer be authorized to appoint FERCog to contract to honor our behalf in cooperative bidding for fuel, oil, and diesel bids for fiscal year 16, and further, that he be authorized to enter into a fixed price contract on behalf of the town at his discretion.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Correspondence,
We don't have any.
Selectboard reports.
Oh.
I would just like to say, I'm encouraged to see so many people here. This has been a total turnaround since the tax rate went up. We have always welcomed other people to come and find out what's happening in the town, and I'm sorry that it took such a negative event to gather interest. What gets enacted at the town meeting is based on the vote of those people present. If you fail to show up, then you have no complaint. It's a matter of who votes for what, and that's the way it is. We don't sit here and try to say, how can we raise taxes? I'm on a fixed income, as I think many of you are. I don't want the taxes to go up. One of the reasons that I ran for select board was to try to keep the tax rate under control. But things happen. We've had an increase in the police budget because we hadn't had any new patrol cars in years. And crime rate is going up all over, even in this town. So we need the right equipment, and we've got the highway department in pretty good shape now, I would say, and the fire department will be the next big expenditure that probably comes up. The school goes without saying. I did not vote for that increase. I recommended against it, as did the rest of the select board, and as did the finance committee. These people work very hard, and they don't get paid for it. And if any of you have any doubt that things are just, going up and we're just saying, oh yeah, let's do this, that's not true. We look at everything. We look at ways to save money, and David has been very instrumental in helping us to save money. He has long experience, he has contacts with people in other towns. We use that information to try to not make decisions in a vacuum. So if you have questions, feel free to come to us and ask, but don't just make snap judgments that we're just here to raise taxes, because believe me, we are not. Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
I've got a question on the coordinator report.
I have
Yes?
a question.
Yes.
I heard that the police department on a private detail to another town or so uses the vehicle, his police vehicle, to go to another town to his private detail. Is that so? And also, if he gets injured in this other town, that as taxpayers we're responsible to take. Is that so, or is this something that is circulated around and it's not true?
I don't know the answer to that. I can tell you that police and firemen are not covered by workman's comp. They're under our police and fire accident insurance. I'd have to look into that.
Well, I'm talking a private detail that
That's
they go
what
to.
I'm talking about,
being
private
paid
detail.
by a private company.
They are paid by,
And if they get injured, that we'd be responsible as taxpayers to take care of his injuries.
I
Is
believe,
that so, or is it?
I don't know, but it seems reasonable that it would be, given that the company requesting the private detail pays a check to the town, and that check to the town includes an administrative fee that I think is 10%. It is, I agree, it's a somewhat annoying practice to see a Warwick police car out of town on a detail, or for that matter, a state police trooper's car out there on a private detail, but it's a standard practice, and we do get an administrative fee out of the deal. So if we get a check for that, if if we bill $1,000 worth of police detail time, we get on top of that 10%, and that will help to cover the cost of the vehicle out there. But it's really standard and in the state, and I was heartened about 5 years ago when, I don't know if it was regulatory or a legal determination that details didn't have to be police officers, because at one point it had to be a police officer. However, they gave the power to make that decision, whether it had to be a police officer or not, to the police chiefs.
Yeah, I know, I was a town highway
Okay, you know.
employee at one time, and we used to do our own traffic duty. And then the police got involved in it, and, you know, we were doing it for what we were getting, paid per hour, and they were making twice as much as us, and having this detail, which was ridiculous. You know, all these companies had to pay twice as much to do something that we did ourselves. So I have an idea about that, you know.
Yeah, our
But
current chief.
I was unaware of the police detail in some other town that we would be responsible for their injuries as far as taxpayers to pay.
I have to look into that one, David.
That doesn't make sense. Sounds like we're getting a shaft.
We're the employer, though, that would make.
Yeah, but he's on a private detail from this town. He's not getting paid by this town, is he?
Yes, he's getting paid.
While he's on the detail
Yes,
to this other town.
so we're building $1
I'm talking when he's off duty.
12 cents for $1
A lot of
worth
these
service.
details are policemen that are off duty, off their regular shift,
It is run
and
through
they're
the
doing
town's
this on the
books.
side.
You know, if I'm correct, doesn't it work like, I don't know whether they make $40 an hour on a detail, and I'm not sure if that's the right figure. But you're right about the 10%, and so if it's $40 and then another $4 goes to the town, and they send a check to the town, but that police officer is still getting $40, in addition to any salary he gets.
Yeah, they're putting in a timesheet for that detail. Warwick's practice is, we don't pay that detail bill until we've been reimbursed by the Verizon, National Grid, XYZ Construction Company, et cetera. I know of towns that have gotten in trouble because they've honored their workforce, their police departments, payroll when presented, but we don't do that. We wait till we actually get the money before we pay them. Which means sometimes these detail officers aren't being paid for 3 or 6 months, which helps to reduce the appetite for that kind of work quite a bit.
Larry Cirillo, 60 Robbins Road. My question is, when an officer's down on 78 with the directing traffic for trees or wires or something like that, is that a town officer, or is he on a separate, is he on his own pay? And my question is, I know that like state police get $47 an hour or whatever it might be, or whatever it could be. I don't know what our officers get. But is he on town using our cruiser with the lights and the gasoline running, and our gasoline bill is being paid, for his car idling over there or whatever he's doing?
On a private job.
Huh?
On a private job.
On a private job. And that's what I believe you're asking,
that's what I'm
part of
trying
that question. And
They have to pay state rate.
Pardon?
They have to pay state rate.
It's a state rate, but is he getting paid, is
That's
the
what
town
that's
getting that money and then paying the officer? Or is the
Yes.
officer getting the money?
The town's getting that money and paying the officer at the rate on that job.
And then, and now the gasoline that's used in that car, sitting there idling all day long, who's paying for that?
Us.
The town, right?
Well, we get the 10%
You get 10%?
on top of whatever the hourly rate is.
So the administrative fee is covering the process, all the paperwork.
I've never
Plus
run
the
the
gas.
I've never run the numbers to say that it's covering, but that's.
Well, I'm saying,
But let me ask this
that's what most
question.
of the town's gonna get.
If the officer gets $40 an hour, what does the town charge for that?
44.
44, so the town makes $4 an hour plus 10% for the gasoline.
No plus.
No.
That
No
is
plus.
the 10%.
That is your 10%.
That it,
The $4 on
so
40.
you lose the money having that car sitting over there.
Possibly, I don't know.
Well, why would you let the officer do it if you lose the money? I mean, why would you let that happen? When you look at everything on the town budget and everything, and you're saying, we're gonna let 2 officers over there, one on the front, one on the back, 2 cars, one on the front, one on the back, and you're getting $45 an hour plus 4. It's gotta be costing you more than that to let that happen. So, it doesn't make sense to let that happen.
One
If they're doing it
reason,
on their own time, have them use their own car. If they have your uniform on, because I know that that's part of the town structure, if they wear the town uniform, they get paid by the town. Okay? If they're in their own clothes with just a vest on, then they're working for that company direct. Doesn't cost the town a cent. So why would you let that happen throughout wherever the traffic might be?
They're in Shrewsbury almost every day. Working.
About every day.
Yeah.
Then the second part of it is, I believe that Steve brought that up, that
I see them every
we've
day.
got police officers
So,
using our town vehicles to go do duty at someplace, another town. You know, that this is just part of it. It's just, you know, a little here, a little there, a little this, and then the town,
What type of duty?
we have to pay for it.
What type of duty are you talking about?
I don't know, what type of duty was it?
We're talking about, if he does a detail in Tewksbury, New Salem, Phillipston, and he's out there, and he's using our car to get there and back. So the point that they're making is, we use